what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. The tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff when they say it's the end. In this life we know you can't pretend. The days pass by.
Hey everyone, it is Sunday night. It is May 11th and 7:30 p.m. and we are broadcasting a special show for you tonight on A Better Contract, the slate that's running to replace the incumbents in the United Federation of Teachers. And we have a full house tonight. Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi, everybody.
Good evening.
It is good to see you all. So, well, you got some comments on the side. You have Nat in the comments. Hey, Nat, how are you doing? So you've got a lot of friends already, people watching from Florida. Charlie's aunt from South Carolina. Good to see you. Hey, Ellen, good to see you too. So, Amy, I'm going to pass this mic to you and just get on with this show. Introduce yourself, and your team can start to introduce themselves, what they're running for, and why do you want to run a union?
All right. Well, I'm Amy Arundel, and I'm running for the president on the slate, A Better Contract. And I'm really excited that our whole slate, except for one person who's on maternity leave, is here. So I'll let them introduce themselves.
Okay, go ahead. Daniel, go first. You're muted. Sounds like we're on Zoom.
So my name is Daniel Elisea. I want to wish everyone a happy Mother's Day who's out there. I am running for vice president of middle schools. And I really believe in the message of a better contract because I think we need a better contract with the city of New York, but we also need a better social contract with our union. A lot has happened in the last 16 years under Michael Mogru, and it's time to take our union back.
There you go. Let's see. Katie, go ahead.
I knew you were going to call on me next. Hi, guys. Hi, folks. My name is Katie Anscat. I am running for treasurer for ABC. I am a 17-year teacher in the New York City Department of Education, and I am running with ABC because we need a change and people do not feel heard in this union. And I also just want to shout out my mom, Annie Harton, happy Mother's Day. And to Marianne, happy Mother's Day because you are the mother of all municipal labor employees. Sorry.
Aw, thank you. Well, happy Mother's Day to all of you guys as well. Steve, you're next and you are muted.
All righty. Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Swizicki. I am a social studies teacher from Lehman High School. I'm in my 15th year of teaching. I've been a chapter leader for just over 6 years. And I also have experience working directly for the union as a part-time staffer. I did 4.5 years in the grievance department and a year and a half in the Bronx Borough office. And I'm running for VP of academic high schools because, like Daniel, I also think that it's time for a change. Full disclosure, I'm a former Unity member. Don't shoot me. No,
but you've learned. This is the great thing about education. You've learned.
Things piled. There were lots of little things that piled up that led me to this point, but it reached a point where I just couldn't, in good conscience, stay with Unity anymore. So here I am. And I also want to wish everyone watching a happy Mother's Day. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. Leah, go ahead. You're next.
Hi, everyone. Leah Lynn here, running with A Better Contract as Vice President of Elementary Schools. I am an 11-year elementary school teacher at PS 85Q in District 30, proud Astoria, Queens, born and raised. I am a chapter leader for about 8 years. I too was also a former Unity Caucus member. And I currently still work at the Queens UFT Borough office as a PM staffer, where I did preliminary pension consultations. And then I have found my niche with being a digital content creator on Instagram now and empowering folks about their contractual rights with the UFT. I am running with a better contract because I think it's time to really empower every member, from paraprofessionals to retirees, and just really fight for those real raises and secure those benefits. So thank you for having me, and happy Mother's Day to all.
Well, happy Mother's Day to you too, and you're welcome. Arthur, go ahead.
I'm Arthur Goldstein, and I'm running for Assistant Secretary. I write a little bit. I've been writing about the union for about 20 years now. And one thing I've learned is that the people at 52 Broadway think we work for them. And that's got to change, because actually they work for us. And I've known Amy Arundel for over 15 years, and I know she works for us, and I know she's eager to represent. And one of the reasons I'm in this is because Amy's in it, and Amy is the very best person to be leading our union. She will not sell out our health care for nothing, for less than nothing, for substandard contracts. Amy will instruct the people at the UFT to support things like 1096, things that Marianne supported, as opposed to opposing it, which is what Michael Mulgrew and Unity are now doing. We will work to support retirees. We will work to support in-service people. Health is very important. I don't know what's more important than health. And we need to look out for our members, as opposed to the city, which is who Michael Mulgrew looks out for. And happy Mother's Day to everybody.
Very good. Chad, you're up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Chad Hamilton. I am a special education teacher in District 75. If you're not familiar with District 75, it is a citywide district that serves high-need students with autism, intellectual disability, emotional and behavioral disorders, other health impairments, really the neediest students in the city. I've been a classroom teacher in District 75 for 19 years and still going strong, still loving it. And I am in my 7th year as chapter leader at my school, P231K in South Brooklyn. As for why I got involved in a better contract, really because over the years we've seen the failings of Michael Mulgrew and his Unity Caucus, who have controlled our union for 60 years. And when you really start to think about it, it's bizarre for one group to control anything for 60 years. And that's largely an ineffective thing too, because what we've seen over the years with this Unity control is a history of diminishing returns. It's cut into our pay, it's cut into our healthcare, our pensions, everything. So it really got to a point where, enough is enough. What we saw happening with Medicare Advantage and Mulgrew's attempts to push retirees into Medicare Advantage, that for me was really, that was it. So a couple of years ago, I left the Unity Caucus because of the push by Unity to move retirees into Medicare Advantage. A number of other reasons too that I'm sure we'll get into as we move along. But
okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Jessica, go ahead.
Hello, my name is Jessica Kim. I'm with ABC, running for Vice President for CTE schools. I currently teach in a CTE school. It's at Inwood Early College up in Northern Manhattan. I'm wrapping up my 9th year teaching science, in particular chemistry. And there are several reasons why I'm running with ABC. Number one, in terms of experience. I'm the baby.
Yes, I was going to say that.
So I'm a baby. So, I mean, just a quick backstory. I started in the DOE in 2010. I left the DOE because at the time, I wasn't feeling supported. I was a regular classroom teacher. I was a probationary teacher, but it's like you're fending for yourselves. And in my experience, it was survival of the fittest, or surviving as the weakest, because you didn't have any protection. No one really. I was the only science teacher in the building. So a lot of the experiences that the probationary teachers undergo right now, I think, could be better. I also only recently got tenured because I left the system and then I returned. So I do understand. I'm very well aware of a lot of the current tier 6 teachers, what they're going through right now. And I'm actually familiar with a lot of the folks on ABC Slate. I was very aware of Amy. She was very active on Facebook, on the one of the subgroups. She, even though she was a Queensboro rep at the time, she always went out her way to help members, regardless if they were Unity or not Unity, whether you were in the Queens area or not. I mean, that spoke to me. And this is me at the periphery. I was never involved in any of the caucuses because I didn't really understand what it was. And then it wasn't until COVID that I started realizing I think like we need to move the union a different way, because in a way, I feel like most of the members, unless you're actively in like the Unity Caucus, you're invisible. Like no one reached out to me. Like when I called for help, but was deferred to talk to your district rep, talk to your chapter leader. And it's really frustrating. And I wanted to help be part of a movement where we could help all members, regardless of your title, regardless if you're active or retired. And even the bigger picture, we need to work as a coalition with other unions in the city. It can't just be what's best for me and U of T. We're part of the fabric of a bigger community. If we move together, we're stronger together. So I do love a lot of the people here because we represent different experiences, different backgrounds. And hopefully this resonates with the union now, and hopefully they vote for ABC.
Very good. Thank you for that. Is it Raquel?
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I am Raquel Blair McPherson, and I am running, backtrack. I'm a math teacher. I've been in the DOE for the last 23 years. I do math and computer science. I am in Beach Channel building in the Far Rockaway campus, where everyone does not remember us, right, Danielle? They don't remember that we exist in Far Rockaway. So hopefully this will change. I'm running with a better contract because clearly and I've known Amy for a while. I've had a couple of difficult situations, and she was able to help me get out of them, and they were really insane. And I believe that it's all about member voice. I will say this from where Jessica's coming from. A while back, like I said, I've been in the union for a while. I did have my tenure and I lost it. And no one represented me. I was left on my own to no fault of mine. And I had all my documentation to show I was ill-advised and I did everything that I was told to do. And I lost my tenure. I was always paying my union dues. I was always a part of it. And my union did not stand with me. I was very fortunate that I worked my way back and I got my tenure. I don't know if everyone will be that fortunate. So I understand how people feel when they're in those situations. I was just strong and had to fight and make sure that I got it. So that's one of the reasons why I think I need to be a voice. I have that kind of experience. And just like Leah says, Steve said, Amy, I was a part of Unity. And even before I spoke with ABC about being a part of them, I did not renew my membership because I was not comfortable. So it was an easy fix for me to go with a group that was actually working for the members. So I left, and it has not been easy. So I know people probably want to ask a question as to, are you really serious about this? Yes, I am. It has not been easy stepping away from that. Amy is on the front line, but there are us who are in the back burner that people don't really know of, that we can talk about the unnecessary torture of stepping away and just trying to fight for members. And if we are a union that's trying to help members, it should not matter if we are a part of Unity, if we are part of ABC. What should matter is that we are a part of union and we are working for members, and we are continuing to do that. Once you are not with Unity, they are not working with you. And what happens is, who is affected? Members. Because who are you working for? The members. For them, that's not about it. It's about, let's do Unity. And if you're not doing that, it's a wrap.
Absolutely. I can't stress that enough, that's also coming up in the chat, and I'm glad you're addressing that, and we'll continue to address that in the next few, the next 45 minutes. So
Marianne, if I can, just for a moment. I saw the question. It was, as all the officers, Unity. I was never a part of Unity. Out of the 29 years I've been teaching, just last year I joined a caucus. It was New Action, and I promptly left them after a year, after seeing that the caucuses many times put caucuses first and not members first. Mm-hmm. And there are several of us running as officers that have never been a part of Unity Caucus as well. I know that Arthur, there's a few hands raised. You can see them. I know that Selma Curry has not been a part of Unity. And we have over 550 folks that have never been part of a caucus. The truth is that only 1% perhaps of our union are caucus affiliated. And so for too long, they have not been reached. And so that is what the message is with a better contract. We are talking about members first, not caucus first.
And that makes a difference, because as we see this a lot of times where people are saying what they're loyal to, and that also came up in here as well. There's a comment here in the chat. Let me see if I can find that one. And here was Christine. She was saying, everyone, thank you for answering that, Daniel. So I'll take that star off. And then someone else wanted to know about the patronage, the oaths that you were signing. Can those of you still drawing money from Unity Patronage Mill address the oaths that you quote, parentheses, probably signed? What exactly do these things say?
Well, I'll start because I'm the only one drawing a salary from the Patronage Mill, because I do have a mortgage and children. Unity Caucus has a application, and on the application it says that you have to abide by the decisions that the caucus makes in terms of policy. And when Unity was first created as a caucus, they had a lot more debate. Under Al Shanker. Al Shanker used to run the DAs, I'm told. Norm can back me up here in the chat, but Al Shanker used to run the DAs, and it was like a raucous, great time because he liked debate and people got up and there was debate. And so that application is as old as Al Shanker. And I'm not trying to say it's not a loyalty oath. I understand why people call it that, because that's kind of how much Unity has deteriorated over the 60 years, where I think at one point in the history of Unity Caucus, there was, active debate and people kind of, fought it out and then came to a consensus. And then you agree to the consensus. And lots of organizations have those kinds of processes. In fact, some of the caucuses who attack Unity Caucus about a loyalty oath have the same process where they debate amongst themselves and then they take a vote, and then everybody in the caucus has to abide by the vote. So is that a loyalty oath? I mean, I guess in some sense. Somebody asked me on Facebook today, like, you're trying to say you said you didn't sign a loyalty oath. What does that mean? Well, what that means is for my time as a Unity Caucus member, and I would say the same is the case for Leah and for Steve and for Raquel, we didn't just do what we were told. We did debate with people. I stood up when I thought something was wrong. People, you know, deservedly so, push back and say, Amy, you supported this contract, or, you supported Medicare Advantage. Well, I stood up and asked a lot of hard questions in all of those places, and paid the price for that, honestly, ultimately.
Well, because you questioned authority, so they pushed back on you.
Yes. And that is what I believe loyalty is. I believe when you're loyal to people, you make sure that they're doing the best that they can do. And if they're on the wrong track or they're making a mistake and you can see it a mile away, if you're loyal to someone, you say, knock it off. Don't do that. That's a mistake. And that's how I viewed loyalty, as being the one to ask the hard questions, to give my opinion, to say things that weren't always easy to say in a room where very often I was the only person saying, well, I'm just asking this question, or have you thought about it this way? Or what you are saying, the members are not going to be happy with. So yes, Unity Caucus has an application. Yes, on that application, it's not like you check the box, you just sign the application. And in the application, it does say that you have to agree to the policies of Unity. I think a lot of other caucuses have the exact same understandings and expectations. And that is why this is a slate and not a caucus, because the people before you have a variety of experiences with caucuses, some no experience, like our beautiful, wonderful Jessica, who reminds us what it would be like, and Katie, who remind us what it would be like if we didn't have caucuses at all. We really want to say that the most important thing are the members and their students. And our goals are to serve those two groups of people, the members and the students.
Well, and in some of that, it requires that you abide by what the machine does, that you have to operate within the caucus, run only for office within the caucus. You have to do what they want you to do. And some of the issues where some of you were part of that caucus, in your questioning them, in your pushback, that's what created some trouble with you all, because those that were in Unity was because you questioned the machine, and they didn't like that. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, so 2 points. The first is that Amy is being very modest because as most people know by now, she was previously the Queensborough rep and she was removed. But the reality is that, and there was like a pretextual reason for her removal. But the reality is, and I think it was Jessica who mentioned this in her introduction, is that Amy went above and beyond in advocating for the members while Mulgrew was out to lunch. That's like, she won't say that because she's modest, but I'll say it. All right. I am in that Facebook group with 40,000 members. And on like a random Saturday night, if you went into that group, all right, there would be Amy at like 10:30 at night answering people's questions, saying, hey, DM me if you need help. I'll support you however I can. All right. Amy is widely respected as one of the finest, if not the finest, organizers and activists in the union. And this is my pet theory. That's why she was removed. The other thing I would just say is that, like, as a member of Unity, or a former member of Unity, one of the things that led to me leaving was the fact that there was that lack of debate. I was okay with what Amy described before, that like, look, we're going to have it out. We're going to duke it out behind closed doors. But then when the doors open, we present a united front. I was like, okay with that. But then I realized there was no debate taking place. It was completely top down. Here are your marching orders. And fortunately, I was never in a position where I had to do something I didn't agree with. And I want to be clear, I'm quite proud of my record, serving the members in the grievance department and the Bronx Borough Office and as a chapter leader. But that didn't come from unity. That came from my work ethic, So, I think that Daniel hit the nail on the head. 99%, literally 99% of UFT members don't even know what a caucus is. And the few who do, the relative few who do, are not interested in it, and I think what most people want to hear about are the issues. They want to talk about healthcare. They want to talk about pay. They want to talk about Tier 6. They want to talk about mandated curricula and the erosion of our working conditions. So yeah, I don't know. The whole unity thing, I realize that there's people that have skepticism. I respect that. But also I think that this slate in the last 6 months, our efforts to organize the membership and activate people speaks for itself.
That's fantastic. I want to just grab a couple.
I would also just add, Leah, I think, this group of people sitting before you are fantastic teachers. Every single person sitting before you had to be convinced to run. They all wanted somebody else to run. It was like, okay, we're all coming together and Amy's going to run. And I was like, great. Who else is running? Oh, not me. I want to stay with my students. Oh, I really enjoy my school. I can't leave my school community, and who better than that? And we will figure it out in all likelihood. These wonderful people, teachers sitting before you, will probably all try to figure out how to maintain their connection to their schools in some way. And it's something I wish I had done when I became a full-time UFT person. That's probably something to talk about, that when you work for the union, maybe you have to maintain, your connection with a school. So I think that's really important too. Like, people, I'm the only one of this group of people who haven't been a teacher in a while. And, I'm jealous. I wish I could say the same. And it's really something special. And the other thing I want to say is, this is a group of people who do not take shit. And excuse my language. And when they see bullshit, they call it out. And whether it's here in this room, or whether it's, a caucus or a management or our union leadership. So, people are saying, well, how do we know that, Amy, who's been in the belly of the beast for this long, isn't just gonna, just take off her mask and reveal her lizard unity skin. And
well,
what I'll say is that
we wouldn't let you.
They won't. This is a group of people, and we have a fantastic executive board who you don't get to see, but they're all part of this as well. We consider them, our leadership team, and they won't let things go bad. And
called accountability, where the board holds you accountable. We do these meetings quite often with our board, and our board. So we have our board meeting, and then we also have an admin board and advisors, and they hold you accountable. That's the point. Like Mulgrew's board, they're just sheep. They're not holding him accountable to the people's wishes. So yes. And trust me, you'll have me screaming on YouTube, Amy, if you're not.
Well, listen, I've already had the experience. I survived it and I learned. So
yes, you did.
So Amen. You know what? Do it.
But see, that's the point, right? And like you said, like people want to like crucify those who were in the opposition. I keep saying no, because like for the unions that were not on our side, that today, 4 years later, are on our side. If I held that grudge, I wouldn't have an army. Today, we have an army of not just retired, but active workers and unions, because they said, we didn't know. we listened to what we were being told, or we didn't fact check it like you asked us to. We were told you were crazy. You were the outsider. You're nuts. They even called me nuts, but it's okay. Now we realize and we apologize and we got your back on this. And they supported us. There's a handful of unions that even put an amicus in our last litigation. I have to remember to teach people to say, thank you for coming over on our side, and not hold you to, oh, you screwed us 4 years ago. It's okay. You're here with me now, and I have to embrace that. And I encourage them to embrace that too. You do have a question, Gary. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was saying live and learn.
Yes, thank you. You have a question here. It says, what can be done about older teachers who received U ratings unfairly? Many of these only received 1 U rating.
U rating is unusual. It would be, does he mean an ineffective rating?
I don't know. Stephanie, you might want to message us again with a little bit more information in the chat, and then I'll pick that question back up.
There are titles who still receive, are on the SU though. So it could be F status. It could be just a certain title.
So from a practical standpoint, if the teacher in question, Stephanie, is receiving a U, currently for U ratings, you can file an appeal, but I want to manage expectations. The turnaround on that is like a year, and the success rate is not great. Now, to Arthur's point, if you're being rated ineffective, either developing or ineffective, you'll be put on what's called a TIP, a teacher improvement plan, which in theory, on paper, is supposed to help you kind of get to a place that you're supposed to be. But more often than not, admin use that as a tool to basically kind of like torture you until you leave. So one of the things that we've talked about, I mentioned before in my introduction, working conditions. We put out a survey last summer, and we also have done a lot of I've lost count of how many meetings. Katie could probably tell you, but one of the things that consistently comes up in these meetings is this pervasive sense of fear throughout the DOE that teachers and other titles are just afraid of their admin. And for me, at least, because I worked for 5 years under a absolutely atrocious bully of a principal, and standing up to bullies is something that we have as a union to learn. Because I always tell people, this isn't like Sauron or Voldemort. They're middle management, right? Like let's not lose sight here. These are people that if they weren't in the DOE, they might be managing like a Foot Locker or something, and we need to not lose sight of that. So again, there are mechanisms in place. Sorry, Jessica. there are mechanisms in place. The effectiveness of them vary, but when we get in, we're going to really mobilize this membership to start fighting back. And again, using our most potent weapon, which is our size. There are 195,000 of us, and it's much harder to discipline, a school of 40 or 50 teachers that are mobilized versus one principal who's not doing their job.
And as Tommy says, we need leadership that addresses a bully principal before it reaches the media, not after. That would require a working relationship with the CSA, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a vestige of Bloomberg that principals have been, kind of the mindset is that each school is a franchise, and the system doesn't take any responsibility for guiding the franchises. And so I'm not sure what they do at Central DOE exactly, but schools are left very much to their own devices, except for outside interference in terms of, districts deciding we want you to do this, or let's send in coaches or whatever. But all of that is kind of, it doesn't focus on any of the right things. And so we have to work this out with CSA because, principals are their members. And to some extent, principals like the freedom that this kind of model has given them, which I respect, because nobody wants to be micromanaged. So I get it. At the same time, like we were just saying, you can't let people do things that are wrong. And so some of what the member who raised the question about the U rating, sometimes people are getting to the end of their career. The principal is, quite frankly, probably being mean and trying to create conditions where a person wants to retire. I saw somebody else comment, if somebody had stood up for me, I wouldn't have retired when I did. I think that is unfortunately something that is more common than it should be. And so I would say that the U rating issue, the negative rating issue, and not being able to sub as a retiree is something we should put on a list of things that we should try to change. We want to balance, the interests of our members with the interests of students. And so what I think has happened is that the UFT has become middle management as well. And so they do exactly what poor middle managers do. They make decisions based on the lowest common denominator. They make assumptions about why people do what they do. There is not a lot of empathy in the UFT for members who struggle or are going through a bad time or make a mistake or things that happen over the course of someone's career. And so that mindset we are going to change. Good. And it's not going to happen overnight, but it's not going to take as long as people think. If we all shift the way we see things, it can happen faster than is realized. But that is what member driven means. It means that you don't judge your members as harshly as management does. You take their side.
Well, and also you have a Michael Mulgrew, for example, who told the press that if he was asked a question by a reporter, if he had gone back to his membership and asked them how they felt on a position, and Mulgrew said, why would I do that? If I had to do that at every time I had to make a decision, I would never get any work done. He's fine. I mean, that was a brazen response from him, and I have never forgotten that. It just shows you that he doesn't really want to know what you, the membership, have to say. He's more interested in the decision, in him being heard.
And that is because he does not have a strategic plan. And that a lot of his decisions are made at the absolutely last minute that they can be made because of his negotiating strategy, which is,
or lack thereof.
What do I have in my hand? A lot of secrecy, in his negotiating strategies, a lot of secrecy. He doesn't want the DOE to know what we really want or what's important to us. And he finds out as quickly as he can what's important to the DOE, and then he holds that hostage. And it's really not a very successful negotiating strategy. At all. And if he had a strategic plan, he could talk to people. It wouldn't take that long. Right. It's not really that hard. We've done so many meetings. Our members are so thoughtful and smart and caring and desperate to
be heard.
And it doesn't take much. Like, no. We go on a meeting for an hour and people are like, oh my God, I haven't ever had this before. Right.
Yeah.
You're like,
what? Cares.
How is that possible?
Yeah, because he monopolizes the time of those meetings so that his voice is heard and nobody else's, right? Jessica's like, yes, oh my God, I know.
Yes, when you attend the delegate assembly, he has the president's report, and it's like eating up time. So you have less time. He's like, I think someone mentioned it in the chat. It's like filibustering your own union. Yep. So we can't raise questions. We can't, ask more information. There's no debate. It's like I'm the current delegate for my chapter, so I can attest to this. it's pretty much decided because you have the report going on for like however many minutes, like 15, 20, 30. It goes on and on and on until time is up. And then you're like,
Oh,
sorry, go ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry, Jessica. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's just I just feel like an urge because I've had direct experience with the delegate assemblies being fixed, and I hate to say this, and I hate to say that I was a part of this committee, but I was a part of a committee where you learned great skills on how to debate, which I'm proud of because it helped me develop confidence in speaking in large groups and how to actually pose a resolution. But I realized that there were pre-meetings to meetings of another meeting of another meeting of another meeting, and then there was a meeting the night before of like what to expect, and these are the questions you have to ask, and we're going to look for you to raise your card, and if you're part of Unity's debate team, like raise your card, get those cards up, ask this question, ask that question. And that's one of the reasons personally why I decided like this is just wrong, like morally and ethically. I'm like, wait, this is not okay. And as a younger member in this union, I'm like, how are these folks here who have no idea really how the union even works? Like, I couldn't even explain it to them because I was so embarrassed that I was a part of that, if that makes any sense. So yeah, you don't have room for it. Every time, even our last DA, I made a video where I was going to raise my fist every time a Unity member was picked to ask a question. And I did that every single time. And people here can attest to it. There's this one person that has been speaking every month. Every single month, this one person speaks and they're on the Unity committee debate team. And I'm like, how is this possible? There's many other people raising their card that have legitimate questions or really have a resolution that is not a scripted one that Unity posed. And it's like, there's no room for it. So essentially you're going to a meeting that is already pre-planned and it's already concluded. Rather, you just have to painfully sit through the 2 hours of it, to be honest. So it's disheartening,
Especially when you have young people who are enthusiastic. I remember someone I work with when I was Queensboro rep, I said to her, "Oh, I really want you to be on the executive board." And in the back of my mind, I was like, well, maybe if more smart people join the executive board, we'll, get some decent back and forth and discussion. And she was really mad at me. She was like, why did you make me do this? This is like, hours of my life I can't get back. And it doesn't do anything, And again, for those of us who work at the UFT, we have the same meeting in 14 different, iterations. It's the staff meeting, it's executive board, it's the delegate assembly, it's pre-D. Like, it's just, and anybody who really, I think people who really care about students and about schools and about making things better are like, this is not for me. This is not for me. I'm smarter than this. I don't want this. And that drains, thoughtful, solution-oriented people from engaging. And then, you get bad decisions. So
let's start going through some of these questions because they're building up, and I know you still have agenda items you want to get through. So Ms. Christine Tracy says, a chapter leader said ABC does not have negotiation skills. I find this hard to believe. The chapter leader also said ABC does not have the connections Unity has to get things done. It's a lot.
Well, no, we don't have the negotiation skills that it takes to sell out the retirees for an inferior Medicare Advantage system. And we don't have the negotiation skills that it would take to cut 10% from your health care, Ms. Christine Tracy, so that you will get a new health care plan that will be tiered, which means depending on where you go to the hospital, you could pay nothing could pay something, or you could pay a whole hell of a lot if you were to go to New York Presbyterian or NYU. And I have a couple of doctors affiliated with NYU. And if, God forbid, I needed surgery from one of them, it could be very costly. If I were on the program they're planning to put you on. No, we don't have the skills to give away $1 million, $1 billion,
$1 billion.
$1 billion from our health stabilization fund, which had $1.8 billion in 2014. Ron Mogul gave away $1 billion, and we don't have the skills to make it now zero, right? It's broke now because they promised to save the city $600 million a year forever.
Without ever saying how. Right. I'm glad you don't have those skills, Arthur.
In exchange for a 3-year contract that hovered around cost of living. May have been a little more, may have been a little less. No, we don't have those negotiation skills. And thank God we don't have those negotiation skills, because Michael Mogul appears to be working for the city of New York, which is our contractual adversary. We need to work for the members. And my dog could negotiate better than Michael Mogul has. I mean, my dog is very smart, but he's not a union member. And
he must be an outsider.
There's an old saying that
outside influencer.
There's an old saying that every accusation is a confession, and that's unity to a T. That is, I'm sorry, but like the stuff that they accuse other people of doing, they're the one, like as they're accusing you, that's what they're doing, right? And so, I mean, and Arthur took what I was gonna like the kind of like smart ass tack of like, we don't have the negotiating skills to get a 3% raise and to lose autonomy in our classrooms and to let para wages stagnate. Like, I mean, that's the thing, is that they don't know how to do. That's honestly the big thing, and Amy kind of alluded to this before. They don't know how to do anything new anymore. It is all just like rote repetition. They're like, I don't even know how to describe it, but there's no inspiration. There's no spark for something new. And
because they're disconnected.
Yeah, they are managing decline is what they're doing. Right? They are managing decline, and there is no ideas. Everything from transparent or open bargaining, which many unions are doing, including public sector unions, including teachers unions throughout the country. There are many things that we could be doing that folks have been now doing for the last 20 or 30 years. They are stuck in a rut. They have managed decline, and they keep on talking about what they gained 50 years ago and how somehow we need to be grateful that we have it better off than others. And so as long as that's the case, you know what? I don't want to negotiate with the prowess of a Michael Mogul, because right now folks are concerned about the cost of living in New York City. We saw him not mobilize for Tier 6 10 or 12 years ago. We saw
and blame Paul Egan.
Right. The buck stops with the president, right? And so, you know what? The negotiation skills, we don't know what they are, quite frankly, because a lot of the contract negotiations, I was part of the 500-member negotiating team. It was performative. We sat in front of the DOE. They looked at us like, okay, you're just going to be here and we're going to listen to you. They nodded their heads. And then behind closed doors in the last 48 hours, Michael Mogul worked out the details, especially about pay and healthcare. So yes, I understand there are folks that are concerned about negotiating, but if you're managing decline and you are not producing results, it's time for something new.
I do want to say too, everyone in this room has a very strong life of experience. So your experiences don't have to be like a resume. So I know Daniel is a community activist where he lives, and he helped with a campaign to save a school. there are negotiations involved in that. The same with Steve. He's a community activist where he lives. Chad works a second job and probably has experiences, so I have a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old. There is a tremendous amount of negotiating that goes on in my house. And I might not have the best experience, but he teaches me a lot. I'll say that. But I do want people to also understand that Michael Mulgrew, at the time that he became the president of the UFT, did not have the experience that I have in this moment.
Right.
I have been in the system for 34 years. I was a chapter leader longer than he was. I worked for Teacher Center. I've worked for the UFT for 20 years. He worked for the UFT for 2 and became the president of the UFT.
And,
so I can tell you.
And remember how your union has never collectively elected a union president in a first term. Every time a union president was appointed by the outgoing president, they passed the torch. This would be a first, and this is why they didn't want the people's voices to be heard, and that's how they kept their power.
And that's so he was appointed because he was Randy's attack dog. That's number one. And let's be real, okay? Michael Mulgrew has both the age and the time in service to retire. I believe his wife just retired last year. Make no mistake, if you're a member watching this, if Michael Mulgrew is elected, I will make a bet right now that between 6 and 18 months from now, he will announce he's retiring. The executive board, which again is not there to hold him accountable, they take his orders. They will select who he tells them to select as his successor, and the cycle will perpetuate. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to break this cycle that has made this union fundamentally undemocratic.
Somebody wrote on one of the social media that ABC earned her vote. And I'm proud of that, because that is what we want to do. We want to earn people's votes. We are not asking people on a wing and a prayer. We're here. We want people to ask us tough questions. Every single one of us engage in social media in some way or another. Michael Mulgrew does not. Michael Mulgrew, we probably as a group has had more meetings, more substantive meetings with members than Michael Mulgrew has, I reckon to say, in his career, if we don't count like DA and, these pre-planned things. So I think there's a tremendous amount of skill in this group of people and a tremendous amount of hope for the future, because aside from Arthur and I, this is a young group of people. And I think that's wonderful too. Young people, because when you're my age, sadly, everybody's young. I don't know how that makes you feel, Arthur. Sorry. But these are people who are young and have had significant experience in teaching. So I think what kind of experience do you want union leaders to have? Do you want, what is important? You have to ask yourself that, because that's a scare tactic to say to people, they don't know what we know. And I'm glad that Arthur said what he said, because I asked myself that question when I thought about running. I was like, could I do this? And then you know what I said to myself? Absolutely. Because if Michael Mulgrew did this, I most certainly can do this. Now, what's different about me and the people on this slate is we don't think we know everything. So if we come up against something that we aren't sure what to do, we're going to ask for help.
And that's what was made our organization so successful. Is I recognized I did not know everything, but I had the asset, if you will, of thousands, tens of thousands of members who had done so many different jobs in the city of New York, and that it was an honor for them to be asked, hey, can you help me with this? Rather than thinking I was queen of the hill and knew everything, which I am woman enough to admit I did not, and use our membership to lead the ship together, steer the ship together. And that is why we were this successful. We brought in people from OLR, from OMB, from different commissioners' offices, from different agencies. We had teachers, we had managers, non-union, union. It didn't matter what they were, their experience, which is what even the unions, the city's lawyers have said that they were shocked at what we were able to accomplish. And that was, as you hear me say all the time, the power of collective action, because by using your army, you will win. And you have that. Use their knowledge. It's important. I want to hit more of these questions because there's a lot. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, Marianne, a big point there is you have the humility, like you are able to accept help from others who maybe don't have that you don't have experience on. We are dealing with a union where I know everything. I rule. My word is right. You know, and that is
gospel.
That's a completely different thing. So we need people to understand that we are not pretending to be perfect.
Right.
And we will need help. And I mean, Marianne,
I probably there to tell us when we aren't.
You're screwing this up. Get another expert.
I think that one thing is out of line.
Let's answer Tommy's question. Tommy wants to know if there will be ABC monitors at 52 Broadway when the votes are counted.
Yes, there will. We're a little bit nervous about the overnight thing. I think Norm has volunteered to bring a sleeping bag, but yeah, we are watching everything. And again, I said this at the last meeting with Marianne. If anybody's retired and a UFT member, and you could help us with observing in-person voting, please get in touch with us because it would really be helpful. There was an event Friday we weren't able to observe, but I think, you know, with help, because they made a rule that anybody running for election can't be an observer, which for us, you know, a lot of who we know support us are on our slate. So we need help with that. I know I was the election chair. I just want to say that I was the election chair for 4 elections, like Randy's last one and 3 of Mulgrew's. And what I will say is the ballot part isn't the cheating, because they do hire people. We have worries about this particular company because it's new and it's might be like a hedge fund kind of thing. So we have worries about that. I'm not so sure that the balloting part is where we have to worry. We have to worry about some of the things I've seen in the chat: pizza parties for ballots,
with cards,
happy hours, where, you know, if people can just go to these things, that'll keep it honest. Because once they know that somebody who isn't Unity is in the room, they behave because they have to. And so
Dennis Galt took umbrage to me saying that was very Elon Musk for me, hearing that, because Dennis Galt said that, on a retiree's page that I made a comment, because if the union has to give away gifts and gift cards in order to get out the vote, then that's look, Elon Musk was giving $1 million checks to people to vote a specific way. Why would you be doing this? That to me, yes, I did say that.
Why would we be doing? Because we have very poor participation in union elections. Traditionally, 25% of members vote in elections, and that's a disgrace. It means the leadership has failed
Yes.
to mobilize and activate the membership. And that's a big thing that we want to change. In my school, we used to give out chocolate chip cookies in exchange for ballots, but somebody complained about that, and we're no longer able to do it. And
Now
I'm
they give
sure we get fewer votes. And I'm kind of surprised to see that Unity is giving away pizza, because evidently the rules that apply to us don't apply to them.
And we're trying, people should file complaints. That's another kangaroo court, but it does keep them busy. And so if you hear about things, please encourage people to file election complaints about them, because at least I think the election complaints do make people, hesitate a little bit, because they have a sense that people are watching, which they're not really, Unity is not used to that. If you haven't gotten a ballot, you can call. Thank you again, Marianne, because she has like the hotline, and a lot of retirees were worried about their ballots, and then Marianne suggested that people contact Bennett. So he got an official answer from them, which we couldn't get from anybody from the UFT to answer. So we know now that if you get 2 ballots, it doesn't matter which one you mail in, it'll be counted. And the only thing is that if you vote in person, it will trump your mailed in ballot. So, I do know we were told by somebody that their chapter leader was saying to people who had voted, you should change your vote, and this is how you do it, go to in person. So these are all things that we should just keep our ears open. The fact that we're finding out about them means it isn't working.
Right.
So, I'm not nervous about it exactly, but we still want to get our message out. That's why, Marianne has been so gracious in letting all of us come here. Just whatever you can do to help us, get the word out.
Amy,
Go ahead.
Okay, I just want to make note of something. A fantastic member and friend from District 30 just texted me asking to say again, the last time Mulgrew won, he won by 66%. That is the lowest margin of a win that he's ever had. So
that anyone has had.
Yeah, 34%. I mean, 34 to 66%. So when you're coming into an election now with that being the past history, like, we really need to think about what we need here. Like, what do you guys want? We can do this. Like, we just need votes. We need everyone to buy in. We need, we're not perfect, but I really think that's very important. And thank you to the person who texted me that, to remind the audience that he only had 66% of the votes, and that's 66% of about
most of them, and the majority of votes were retired.
Yeah. And that number,
that's important. That's important to understand that, yes, he won with 66%, but that was because many retirees, especially for many years, Unity has courted the retiree vote. But we're seeing that has changed ever since Medicare Advantage, and we saw that with the RTC election. If you look at just in person, it was 42% of teachers voted against. Active teachers, 42% voted against Mulgrew. So it's even lower when you just look at active teachers. And so I think it's really important to understand that retirees are an important, vital, and I think game-changing constituency. Your voices need to be heard. You have seen how this leadership has sold you out. And so it's not just saying, we're asking for your vote. There are lives at stake here. We saw what they were offering, the pre-authorizations, the limited care. And so I really do think we've got to understand that this election is historic, but it's also, it's a pivotal moment. And so we've got to understand the moment and sees it.
I also want to add about the healthcare issue is that the language that's coming out of the MLC, and some of the unions have posted on their websites, with UFT has not, is that in the negotiation for the active worker, non-Medicare retiree proposal, that they're using the same language they did in Medicare Advantage, that their goal was, as Michael Mulgrew used to say, was to get 95% of doctors we currently see in the network. Now, we all know as we get older, we need more doctors. And if we're retirees and we're outside the area and need more doctors, well, 95% of doctors I currently see isn't going to help me. When Mulgrew said that, the real number in the Aetna Medicare Advantage was 88% of doctors we currently saw were in the network. That wasn't going to be a help for us. And then their other argument was, well, don't worry, 8 to 10% are known to accept a Medicare Advantage plan. That was a false narrative, because there is a program that encouraged doctors to at least accept the plan once for payment to see how great it was. And they used that figure to say, see, they accepted it at least once. It was fake. And so we were able to show that it was literally a ghost network. And you and I have had these conversations that a ghost network is a network that doesn't exist. The names are there, but the doctors aren't accepting the plan. So they're working on that right now. That is your future plan. But Mulgrew isn't having this conversation, with any of you.
And I would just
say, 95% of the people who currently accept emblem GHI is quite different from 95% of the people who accept Medicare. Since I've been on Medicare, all the doctors I've ever seen just take it. GHI was much more limited, and 95% of GHI is not an improvement. I've been dumped by former GHI doctors. I'm sure many of my colleagues have had the same experience, and they don't get paid very much. And now that they're going to pay 10% less, it's really going to be awful.
I really want to head back to these questions because they're piling up. So we have Christine asking, what will ABC do to increase paraprofessional salaries, and will you continue with Respect Check?
Want to talk about that, Chad?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So I've worked with paraprofessionals for 20 years in District 75 in my classroom, and I am very, very familiar with the integral part that they play day in and day out in the education of our students. Paraprofessionals spend more time with our students than any other title that exists within the DOE. Paraprofessionals are definitely subject to a lot more risks on the job than any other profession in the DOE. They are much more likely to be injured on the job. And the pay for paraprofessionals is criminal. It's a full-on disgrace. It's inexcusable that for decades, Unity Caucus has not cared at all about paraprofessionals. Paraprofessionals in almost all circumstances do not qualify for line of duty injury. They can only take workers' comp. And yes, there are some advantages to workers' comp versus line of duty injury, but that's, but by and large, what we hear from paraprofessionals is that they want to be eligible for line of duty injury coverage, and they're not, which is insane. In terms of salaries, there needs to be wholesale salary reform for paraprofessionals. And let's be clear, the only reason why this respect check is happening right now is because fixed para pay beat Unity last year 3-1 in the election for the paraprofessional chapter of UFT. If not for fixed para pay, Unity would be continuing their same policy of not caring about paraprofessionals at all. So this $10,000 respect check, this is something that Unity is, of course, throwing out in this election year. They're trying to buy votes from paraprofessionals. Mulgrew thinks that paraprofessionals can be tricked into going for this. but we all know paraprofessionals are much smarter than that. Paraprofessionals understand, yes, I will take the $10,000 because who wouldn't, right? It's been owed to them for decades. So of course they should take that $10,000. We want them to have that $10,000 because it meets an immediate need, starts to meet an immediate need. But what really needs to happen, though, is that $10,000 should not be this respect check bonus that paras will be getting if this even comes to fruition. I mean, the whole other thing is that this has not even happened yet, right? It's still in process. Yes, there are enough sponsors now on city council, but the mayor's office has already said that they're going to veto it. So that's going to go around for a little while, right? And Mulgrew's promised that this would be wrapped up by June. Not really looking like that's going to happen. So the thing about this $10,000 respect check is that it's not pensionable. It's not subject to any future collective bargaining increases to our salaries. And also because it's created by city council, right? By a bill, that means later on, at any time, the legislation that created this respect check can be undone. There can be new legislation to eliminate this respect check at any time. So it's not locked in like things would be if it was negotiated through collective bargaining as part of our contract. So the number one thing that we'll do in a better contract is we will make sure that $10,000 becomes part of paraprofessionals' base pay and is not this. Sorry, this thing just blew up on the screen.
Ellen wrote a lot there. I'll wait a second. Go ahead.
But the thing I want to point out is that on a better contract, we're running with over 120 paraprofessionals on our slate. That's far more than any other slate that Unity has run in the past. We're very proud of that. We are very proud to be running along with the members of Fixed Para Pay. They are running with us as members of our executive board, and we are very, very much looking forward to be going to the bargaining table with paraprofessionals, sitting down with the city, because this is another big difference, is that when paraprofessional pay was negotiated back in 2023, guess who wasn't there sitting at the table to negotiate it? Paraprofessionals. It's insane. It's insane. So we need to be sitting across from the city with paraprofessionals, making it very clear, this is what we need. This is why we need to change we need to completely change the way we're doing negotiations. And the way we do that is bringing in all UFT members and making them an actual part of the process. So that's how we're going to start by to address that.
I want to add one thing, because Marie Para had asked some tremendous questions to Councilwoman Mercedes Narcisse the other night when we had another live. And what she said was that while today that bill has a supermajority of 47 council members on that bill, when I looked at it, the only ones that were not on it were Adrian Adams, Councilmember Carr, Ayala, Gutierrez, and Moya. But even if that bill passes, it is an unfunded mandate at this time, which means it is dependent upon the mayor agreeing to its funding and repeatedly agreeing to its funding. That had not been said before, and I think that blew us all away when she told us that the other day. So I want to remind everyone of that, is that that's what they said. And this is why this was important. Daniel did a really great visual where he talked about collective bargaining equity. Whereas when we were given documents of the costing of the last couple contracts, this was documents that not even Amy had seen, and she was on the negotiating committee. These were documents I was given through a FOIL process in the city of New York. When we looked at this, Daniel and I were able to figure out, he actually better because he's better at math than I am, figured out that there was about $450 million that they could have attributed towards the paras, and they did not. So if they negotiate this big pool of money, rather than giving chunks of it, 3% only to every title, they could have taken that pool or parts of it where they were negotiating something else, like this additional 450 mil, and given it to the paras. And you did that great that little image with the steps, like the boxes that they were standing on, showing how to give everyone equity. That way they all would have risen together. And he did not do that and said that he couldn't. And it is pattern bargaining that is destroying everything. And I want to also remind you, he set the pattern with Medicare Advantage in 2014. That's all I got to say about that.
If I can, about those costing sheets. Look, the city, in addition to the package that all city unions got, which is about 3% over the next 4 or 5 years, the city offers a 0.5 or 0.5% called an equity fund. And the unions can choose what they want to do with that 0.5%. Now, DC 37 took that money and decided, you know what, there are some lower paid folks that we need to make sure that they get that money because they're the ones in need. When Mulgrew had that 0.5, he decided to do a little bit more finagling. And what he did was he said, you know what, if I can find another, let's say 0.5 or 0.65% by delaying payments, and that's how he kind of figured out the other percent, he was able to take that 1% and he gave all 120,000 folks retention bonuses. Now, these retention bonuses, for those of us that just got one, after their tax comes to about $350, $400 in our pockets. That money could have been earmarked to paras. It was over $450 million to the 30,000 paras that are in desperate need because they are not making a living wage. And he decided, you know what, rather than really addressing those in the most need, I think what he was looking for was a quick turnaround on us signing that or ratifying that contract, and dropped the ball when it came to paras. Now that there's an election, now that the para chapter also flipped along with RTC, 75% of paras voted out Unity's leadership and gave them a referendum and said, look, we want to fix para pay. Now he's interested in finding ways to somehow in an election year promise an IOU. And that's all that is, an IOU. Right now, a para can look at their pay and say, you know what, I don't have the $10,000. You're likely not going to have it. If it does pass in July, I hope it does. But again, it's still subject to budgeting. And so as long as every year a mayor comes in and says, look, this is what the budget is, and then the city council says, here's our budget, and they kind of reconcile those things, every year it's going to be an issue. As long as it's not tied to our collective bargaining. Here's the other thing. I wrote a reso along with Marie Para and Migda Rodriguez. Last year, we wrote a resolution saying we need to see a comprehensive, robust collective bargaining plan for paras. What is the plan? And Unity stood up and said, no, we can't do that. It needs to come out of the para chapter. No, we can't pass this reso right now. And they denied a reso.
They said the paras didn't want a raise.
They got a handbook.
They got a handbook.
Who did not want to raise?
And so could you imagine voting down a reso, asking for a robust, comprehensive collective bargaining plan, saying, no, this is just not the time for it. And then a year later saying, you know what, we're going to try our best to try to get these $10,000, but not through collective bargaining, which is the heart and soul of what a union does. We're going to find some, I think they call it a differential. If you read the bill, they call it an offsetting differential. It is not even an increase to their wages or salary.
Well, I just want to say that one of the things that Unity has said in the last week to paras is that ABC does not support this bill. And they've even gone as far as to say that we are lobbying against it, which is hilarious because, like, who has time to lobby? Not me, for sure. None of us here have time to lobby. So that's a lie that is being told because we don't think the bill is good enough. So, look, if they can get the bill through before they, have to move out of their offices, okay. But I'll tell you something. We would not want to rely on that bill. Like our charge, as Daniel was saying, and I don't mean to repeat it, but it's why they're saying we're against the bill, because we think it's not a respect check. We think it's the opposite of a respect check. And even calling it that is disrespectful. And so, we could potentially be being set up because they've done all of this stuff about this respect check, which is nowhere near going to pass before this election. So when we win, we're going to have this respect check, kind of in the air. And I just want Paris to understand we're not against that. And we know people need money. We want to talk to you about the choice. We're going to have to talk about it because we could try to carry that through, but it has a lot of negatives. And we should, as a union, talk about the pros and the cons and make an informed decision whether or not this particular strategy is the one that would be best in the long run for Paris. Because this is another thing about Mulgrew. He is a short-term thinker. He doesn't think for the long term. And that has been very detrimental because everything you decide to do has unintended consequences. You can't help that. And so that's why conversations are so important with people because, for example, they were all proud of themselves. The respect check, 10 grand, we're great. They had a town hall for Paras only. They wouldn't let anyone else go. And somebody asked him, well, how is $10,000 as a lump sum going to help me pay my
non-pensionable, meaning it ends when they retire, which could potentially delay their retirement in the hopes that they maybe get it pensionable. But if they don't, they lose that money.
And the day to day, if you get, it depends. When's the check going to arrive? What's the best time for the check to be cut? And then many paraprofessionals rely on, city support. They have Section 8 housing. They have food stamps. Does getting a one-time $10,000 check put some people out of the bracket?
They go above the bracket.
Those benefits when that 10 grand isn't going to help you buy food, on November 12th. So we just really want to communicate, I hope, effectively and ask people to talk to paras that because it looks really good. That 10,000 respect check. It looks good. It sounds good. There has been no conversation about this decision. Mulgrew did not discuss it with the para executive board. They still haven't seen the bill. Like, nobody knows about this. Nobody's been able to give feedback, nothing. So when we win, we're going to have to do the right due diligence. We're going to have to talk this through with paras to make sure that we do something, that whatever we do as a union, when I say we, I mean all of us, not, the 10 people sitting here, that for the long term, we're building something that will advance us. And a respect check doesn't advance the chapter. It doesn't. It is literally a buy-off. And so I do want to kind of prepare people for that because I've been thinking about it. I even asked a para who I met on Friday, Cammie, I think she's here. What do you think? What do you think paras would want? Would they want us to just finish the deal and get the 10,000, or, what should we do? And she was really honest with me and said, well, people really need money. So, this is a real challenge that we are faced with. We are willing to take it on, by the way. We are happy to take it on. We believe in the dignity of paras. I've heard Chad talk about it, and I've gotten goosebumps. I didn't ever have the honor of working with a para in my classroom, and so to hear teachers talk about how much they learn, and I know my children had pre-K paras who they knew as their teachers. They didn't know they were paras. They were teachers in the room. So this is not lip service. We're very dedicated to this. We have to figure it out, and we're going to do it with paras. And I just want people to be kind of prepared for that, because that, I think, is going to be said a lot in the next couple of weeks. They're not going to do the 10,000. You're going to lose out. You have to elect us because the bill hasn't been passed. And if they win, they won't take the bill forward. So we haven't made that decision,
right?
Obviously, and you hear
it would be entirely up to the para chapter first. Like that's part of what you just said. I found it so hypocritical that they said, we can't come up with a reso that says come up with a collective bargaining plan because it has to come through paras first. And then Michael Mogru stands in front of a press conference and announces that he's legislation with no bill written, never once consulting the para chapter, not once. Only to find out that it may not even been his idea. That's maybe the CEO. That's a whole other person, David Hickey, who came up with this idea. That's hearsay. But the point is look, paras need a living wage. They are desperate. The cost of living in this city is out of control. And if you're making 30 grand, 32 grand with 4 dependents, that's a poverty wage. And so I get it. If as Amy said, if we think after speaking with paras and paras decide their destiny, hey, if we have to go this route as a stopgap, maybe that's it. But guess what? We need to do what's best for the paras long term. As you said, Amy, Michael Mogru thinks short term. He wanted retro raises. What does he do? He dips into the stabilization fund for $1 billion, not thinking that in 2025 there would be 11 lawsuits filed because of his tinkering with the stabilization fund, and then trying to find that money through Medicare Advantage.
I remember being told in staff meetings that we're hanging on to premium free healthcare by a thread. Like this was pre even 2014, and certainly when we got through 2014, and we were nervous. The staff was nervous because we kept saying, like, if we give away premium free healthcare, like that contract is not going to pass. I mean, people, and that's honestly why when the Medicare Advantage thing initially happened, which, by the way, folks, I found out when I read about it in the Chief. The staff of the UFT was never told about this. We were the ones talking to members. I mean, the phones went, nuts the day after that Chief article came out, and we didn't know. We read the Chief article, and so we just didn't know. And I guess my point is really that for the last 20 years, there has never been talk of advancement, of improvements. It's always been they're trying to kill us. So as long as we keep treading water, we're successful. We survived Bloomberg, but did we? I don't know that we did, because when Bloomberg left, the school system has not improved, and our benefits. It was de Blasio who did this healthcare business because he picked Bob Lynn, and Bob Lynn might as well have been, so it's just, there's a lot to undo. But we have that mindset, which means that we need a strong membership, because in order to really advance our cause, we're going to have to fight for it. Nobody's going to give us anything because that's what they tell us. We can't. The city's poor, blah, 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 blah. And so, we have to build power, and we have to start in our schools. Somebody asked about principals. Like, these are places where we're going to, build our muscle, build it out. And we're going to start a contract campaign in 2025, which means we're going to build power. We're going to start talking about things. We have to do research. We have to hear from experts, that kind of thing. And we need to rebuild the MLC.
Yep.
We need a real municipal labor movement. And if we can just quickly talk about this outsider thing.
Go ahead.
Because that's another thing that I think is going to be a big attack in the next week, is that, we're Marianne's puppets, and, which wouldn't be a terrible thing, but nobody wants to be a puppet.
No one's a puppet. See, what they don't like is they don't like that I'm giving you a platform, a microphone, an opportunity to share your voice, because your voices have been suppressed. That's what he doesn't. Don't listen to her, or they block me because they do. It's like those monkeys. La, 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 I'm not listening to you. But they're literally blocking themselves out from educating themselves. Because if I was wrong, they would fact check, debunk the hell out of me and tell me you're full of crap. But they're not doing that. They can't debunk anything that we're saying. And they don't want me to share our platform. The retirees have given you a space. They want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Can I also add to that?
Yes.
Okay. So for me, when I first heard this resolution about outside interference, I started questioning and saying, like, who really gets to decide what is outside interference? And if we're posing a resolution that states outside interference, whether it's you, Marianne, or DSA, whoever they're posing as outside interference, I thought of it as, if we're advocating for, or challenging rather, leadership because we're advocating for healthcare protections, how is that considered interference? It's actually considered advocacy.
Exactly.
And as I'm thinking about it, like, the UFT negotiating through the MLC impacts New York City retirees. So when we are given platforms to discuss this, you better believe we're going to accept it, and you better believe we're all going to work together to make sure that our advocacy is heard. So to me, I have questions about who gets to decide what outside interference is, because if you're going to say Marianne is outside interference, so then are parents also outsiders? Are community members outsiders? Are advocacy groups outsiders who are fighting for public education and benefits? So if we're a service union, right, which is what we are, we don't make decisions actually that impact only our members. They affect our students, our families, essentially the entire city. And we can't be ignorant to this. So I'm very confused, and I'm actually looking forward to speak on behalf of this on Wednesday and question, well, who's deciding what outside interference is? And I think it's important that we debate that. We should be able to debate that,
I want to piggyback off of that. I'm going to put on my social studies teacher hat for a second, because I teach participation in government. I know the Delegate Assembly is our highest deliberative body in the UFT, but there's an even higher entity. It's called the U.S. Constitution, and the First Amendment allows for freedom of association. So I want to be clear. Maybe they'll bring this resolution forward for a vote. Maybe they won't. If they do, maybe it'll pass. Maybe it won't. But it's complete. Let's say that it does pass. It is completely toothless if they pass that resolution. Nothing is going to stop you, Marianne, or us from advocating for members, whether they're in service or retirees. And I've made this point before. Marianne, how long have you been retired now?
Almost, I guess, 20 years.
Okay. I am certain that if the unions were doing their job, you wouldn't be here right now. You would
not.
You would be down in Georgia enjoying your retirement. And the simple
with my dogs and my cars, yes.
Us having this meeting right now is an implicit condemnation of the U of T leadership, along with the leaders of the other unions in the
Yes.
ML, really just DC 37, right? That you are stepping up and doing what they should have been doing all along. And you hit the nail on the head before, that it's not even about outside interference. It's unity is used to controlling every official apparatus and frankly, unofficial apparatus as well. Okay. They have a monopoly on all of it. And between your advocacy, between now, the DOE Facebook group that's got 40,000 members in it, and people are speaking up, and Unity doesn't have control anymore. So they had to create their own group with like 1,200 members. Okay. They are freaking out that the era of gatekeeping is over. They could pass the resolution. They can block you. They can do all this stuff. It means nothing. All right. This train has gotten moving, and I believe in people power, and this train is not going to be stopped. Okay. The retirees aren't going to allow it. The paraprofessionals aren't going to allow it. In-service teachers are not going to allow it. All the other titles, like you can probably get away with pissing off one constituency, but you can't piss off everybody. And that's what he has done. He has alienated every constituency in the U of T.
And he's
Including the
unrepentant. Like a person would have, I realize the stakes were very high for him, and he's really the architect of this whole thing. So maybe it isn't realistic for to expect him to be repentant, but he's just like, it's just, he's sorry for nothing. Like, I'm sorry. He still to this day says things like, retirees are anxious. So we had to settle them down, so this,
how that infuriates them?
Because they don't really understand, because they're so anxious.
Every time he says that, it makes them angry. Mm-hmm. Retirees are infuriated. It wasn't that they're nervous and anxious over the MA plan. No, they were angry and betrayed that their union leader threw them under the bus to sell off their health plans, privatize a federal public health benefit, and pass co-pays on them to finance their benefits and their raises and whatever as a backdoor deal at their expense. And they're betrayed.
Marianne, can I read something to you?
Yes.
You have created a template here. You've taken folks from literally almost every city union, and you have organized them together as a movement for retirees. Mm-hmm. I think this city is yearning for city workers, active city workers, to come together. I'm going to read you Article 2, where the objective of the United Federation of Teachers, this is from the Constitution. This is Article 2, Section 1. The objectives of the United Federation of Teachers shall be to cooperate with the fullest extent, with the labor movement, and to work for a progressive labor philosophy to awaken all members a labor consciousness and a sense of solidarity with labor. That is objective 1 of the United Federation of Teachers. We are not some insular group that only looks out for their concerns. Our Constitution, our mandate is to work with all other city employees and other folks in solidarity, the labor movement here locally and nationally. It is our job to go out and fight for all workers.
And we cannot win by ourselves.
No.
It's so, like, when people talk about wages and benefits, we have to have a city labor movement. Like, it would be a lie to look people in the face and say, ABC's going to do that. Don't you worry. Like, we can't, that we believe in it. We want it, but we can't do it by ourselves. We cannot. And so that's why the contract campaign starts, in September, and the building of bridges. And, we're going to need this entire retiree organization, because you're going to need to be talking to your unions and saying to your unions, it's a different day, folks, and DC 37, we're going to have to work together on DC 37, like we're working together on the UFT, because these are, big leaders who think they are more important than the members. And, that kind of takes us back to the unity thing. Like, it's very easy. And you and I have kind of talked about this, Marianne. It's very easy to fall into that. Like, ooh, I'm Mary Ann, I'm a folk hero, and everybody wants to talk to you, right? And so, you take the calls, but you always say, I got to bring it back. I got to bring it back. And you're very open and you talk and you educate people. And that's what we, are committed to doing.
Right.
And everybody on this slate is going to do their job differently than anybody can imagine. So that's another thing I would say. Like, anybody who's been around a long time, they say, oh, well, the secretary is the staff director and the treasurer is the trustee, and the special ed person takes care of functional chapters, and the CTE person just does works with the companies or whatever, the field, and the VP of ed does this, and the element. It's all up for grabs here. And our goal is, in every one of these officer positions, how do we serve members? How do we serve members? How do we learn about what members think, believe, need? How does we have a treasurer who's going to look at the way that the union uses resources? We have no idea how things are budgeted, how they're, where the money is. We have no, as members, when I say we,
Right.
as members, we don't have any idea how our dues money is spent, their, grants, all this stuff. It's all
I'm shocked
under
you don't get a financial report. Like, when in my union, they release a detailed financial report at every meeting.
Yeah, Marianne, we talked about this. Like,
Yeah,
why?
There's no transparency.
Yeah,
No.
I think that they had asked for 2 or 3 years at the executive board for at least a report. It's definitely not itemized. It's very, very general. It's very, very vague. Let alone the reports from the welfare fund. Those are just as vague. They are not itemized. The minutes are not available for executive board meetings anywhere. They're not available for the welfare fund. And you're right, Amy. We've got to build bridges with other locals at this point.
Yes.
Mary Ann and I are labor nerds. And so sometimes we sit and we read minutes from years ago in the MLC. And I was reading the MLC minutes the moment the 2014 agreement happened. And Mogru comes into the door and he's saying, you know what? Well, we need $1 billion out of the stabilization fund. And it is absolutely fascinating to hear the uniformed presidents lose their ever-loving minds. They said, what? You never told us that this deal is hinging on this. And Cassidy, Palladino, Pat Lynch, they were like, there's no way we're going to go to our members saying that you're going to go into the stabilization fund and do this. And so there are bridges to be built here that need to be mended with all city workers at this point. So you're right.
100%.
Our job is not just, it's going to be, yes, members first, but at the same time, it's the labor movement here in this city that needs to be rebuilt.
Thank you for saying that, because that's one of the things. I mean, Mogru did even say that to me personally in October when I asked him to do an amicus in our case and to ask the MLC to do it if he wouldn't. And he said, I can't do that, Marianne. No one there likes me. And that is the problem. You burnt every bridge with every union leader by screwing them over. So yes, there is a lot of mending to be done. And I'm sure they're looking forward to that as well.
But this tracks with how Mulgrew and the top, inner circle within UFT operate, because they control the information. They are not upfront with members. They do that on purpose so they could do their backdoor deals, and then they react. This is why we're seeing, Amy mentioned it before, the unintended consequences, things that happened 16 years ago, we're now feeling it now. But it's not just us. It's affecting every single retiring city members. It's not just about UFT. We're part of a community, like, the circle of life and everything. Because what one union does, it has a ripple effect on everything else. So we have to talk to each other, rebuild that trust, and we have to communicate and be united all together, because that's how we all win. If we don't trust and reestablish that bridge, nothing is going to change. This is how we're going to operate again.
I agree. Let's see if we get a few more of these questions in the chat that I put aside. Jazz Snare is asking, as a retiree, what weight is our vote relative to in service?
So this is how I understand it. And one thing is that a lot of unions don't let retirees vote. So this is interestingly, this is how the universe is faithful. Interestingly, Unity's base was the retirees. And forever, they were the ones who voted. And a lot of, I don't like to use the term opposition, but people who were challenging Unity all those years always were like, the retirees, you give them so much power and they're not even working, blah, blah, blah. And so there's this 23,000, up to 23,000 votes is 1-for-1. So you get 23,000 full votes.
23,750, I think.
Thank
Of
you.
89,000.
One for one. Yeah, the ratio would be
1 for 1. And then you go over that, and then there's a formula. And there's a percentage then that each of the other votes beyond 23,700 are worth. So everyone should vote because your vote is still counted.
Right.
It's just counted a little less. But if people aren't voting, it counts a lot because even point whatever is greater than 0. I know that much. It's about all I know. But so don't be feeling like you have to be the first person to the mailbox. Who's going to be the first 23,000? It's like every
vote
counts. Take a deep breath. Make sure you vote by the 20th. If anybody's in the tri-state area, there are these in-person opportunities.
Gotcha.
But the retirees vote, and now they don't want you to vote.
Right.
Now they're glad it's only 23,700 because they've pissed everybody off. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
Now this question I put up before, and I'm putting it back up because we didn't answer it. Can we get release time without car deduction for observe vote? What does that mean?
It
No.
depends.
Sorry, Steve.
No, Mike. Sorry.
I mean, we have arranged it for candidates. When I was the election chair, like the presidential candidate of every slate, we got released to watch the vote. I do not want to watch the vote. I am way too anxious for that. So I will not be anywhere near that vote. But but they're not going to just release tons of people. That's why we rely on retirees. We might be able to get one person from ABC released.
Thank you. Cammie says we need Lodi.
Yes, that's what Chad was talking about. Yeah.
Okay. Charlie's aunt wants to know how you feel about the ballot snafu that's going on. Ballots are not being received, etc.
Well, Norm made a comment. Norm Scott, who follows things better than anybody in the whole world, I would estimate. He said that the last round, people were getting their ballots very late then too. He says this is not as unusual as people think it is. We're nervous because it's a new company, but this happened in the last round of voting. Norm followed it because Norm follows everything.
I mean, this is why we hate mailed ballots, because it's insanity. But this is always a thing. And I think it's a lot this time because more people are waiting for their ballots, which is exciting because they're like, I didn't get my ballot yet. And so it's more people because they're actually waiting for it. I take comfort in that. But here's the thing. We are in a very strong position, the strongest position that any alternative has ever had. And we do not want to create any reasons to challenge the election as a whole. We don't want to create those reasons because we might win. And we don't want to have done all the homework, and so I'm just asking everybody to just take a deep breath, and don't kind of, if we can not post all over social media that we think that they're cheating or this or that, because we want to win. We're working really hard to win, and we do not want a second election. A second election would not be in the interests of the members of our union.
In July or whenever they decide to do it.
Right.
Or September. Yeah, exactly.
Tommy says, if ABC should win the election, will ABC post the next contract in its entirety on the UFT website?
Yes.
Not summaries of the contract, rather a verbatim copy of the contract.
Physical
not only that, but what we've actually discussed doing. So printing costs are pretty prohibitive. And so in an ideal world where money is no object, we would like to go back to what the union used to do and mail a copy to every single member. But obviously, that would be incredibly expensive. So one of the things we've talked about doing is having the entire contract available online. That's a non-negotiable, no-brainer. But then if members want to request a contract, a physical copy, we would maybe do like a printing like once every year or two, and send them out in like by request batches, which kind of strikes like a happy middle ground between getting people who want it versus balancing our fiduciary responsibility to the union.
I have bad news. One of the reasons why we don't have a complete contract is because our changes, the negotiated changes from 18, haven't been incorporated into the contract, and neither have the changes for 2023. Wow. So they don't actually have anything to print. So I believe that is being worked on. I think it is a disgrace that this has happened. I know for a fact in 2014 that the attorney who was general counsel then worked the entire summer to incorporate the language. So we had a 2014 full contract. Now it was only digital, so that was a problem, but at least it was incorporated. And the thing that I want to say to people and why power is so important is because Mulgrew likes to get to the deal, he does not spend a lot of time, again, thinking about details. So we used to call it apple pie. You'd go to the bargaining table and everybody thinks they're talking about apple pie, right? We all agree it's apple pie. It's great. Great. Write it down. We all love apple pie. And then after you step away, you realize we were talking about apple pie, but they were talking about apple crisp. So now we're fighting. Is it 2 cups of sugar? Is it 3? Is it crumble? Is it, no cinnamon? Is it green apples? Is it red apples? And that is what has happened since Mulgrew became the president. Every single agreement, and that's why COVID went so poorly, because every single agreement we made, once it got implemented, it was a shit show, because the DOE deliberately kind of likes talking about apple pie so that we can't enforce. We have and everything has to be litigated. So that's why we have to build power at the schools to stop principals from calling legal and getting bad advice. And, and then we have to obviously work on trying to tighten up, vague language to the best of our ability without spending too much time going backwards. But that is a big part of our problem.
So on the things we talked about before, and there's still a couple more questions in the chat, but you had wanted to talk about a couple of other issues, and one of these goes into that. So Mike asks, can Marianne address the false accusation by Unity More, New Action, Retiree Advocate, and Arise? So there's a lot of false accusations being made by these other caucuses that affect both myself, both this slate, as well as its leader, Amy. Last year, they smeared me. They took my photo, put it on a Palestinian flag, said I was anti-Semitic. They're doing similar things with Amy on this year. The purpose is to get people to stop listening to me, or stop listening to Amy, or stop listening to this slate. They want to shut all of us down, to discredit us. And by doing that, they have to find something that would trigger you and turn you off immediately. And by taking something out of context, like they took my photo, cut my face out of it off of a video, smacked it on a poster, and said that I was at some rally when I was literally in Georgia and not New York, and part of a Moore caucus when I've never been part of a Moore caucus. Remember, I'm an outsider. I'm not in a Moore caucus. So this is what the narrative is that they're doing, is that they have to smear Amy and her peer colleagues in order to get a population that is very sensitive at this time over what is happening nationally. You've had Amy's peers say to you in a video that we were on a couple weeks ago that she's not anti-Semitic. You don't know me to be anti-Semitic. You know me not to include my politics in my work. Amy has committed she would not include her politics into her work. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that? Because I think basically just saying they're not telling the truth. Like even Faye says here, the Unity Flyer says they're the only caucus with a real plan, or they're the only ones that'll save Medicare Advantage. No, they're trying to get you to trust them and not trust us or you.
Well, the first thing I would say is ask Unity for their real plan. They show you this flyer with 3 bullets.
Yeah.
We have a 30-page document called the first 100 days of what our plan is just for the first 100 days. You can go to bettercontract.org and find that plan. When it comes to the accusations, and look, I understand people's feelings are passionate on this issue, especially the Gaza-Israel issue. And look, bottom line is ABC is made up of folks of all different persuasions, backgrounds, thoughts, religions, you name it. 550 folks that have varying views on a million other issues. But one of the things we committed from the very beginning was that this would be a nonpartisan slate, and that what was going to guide us was what the members want and need. And so from the very beginning, we started out with a survey, and it was bread and butter issues that was important to this union. Look, there are Zionists and anti-Zionists on our slate as well. There are folks that have other views, you name it, on pro-choice, on the right to life. But we all have committed from the get-go that we were not going to allow our personal politics to get in the way of what is important to the membership, and that everything would be decided on referendum. And when I say referendum, look, I'm of the thought that when it comes to very sticky political issues, 51% is not enough. I know when we do SBO votes inside of our schools, we ask for 70, 80% of that vote, so that we know for sure that we're speaking for the members and we're not just speaking for a simple majority. And so, look, I've known Amy for several years now. She helped my school stay open. Everything that you've heard about Amy, as far as being a fighter and an advocate and champion, as borough president, as an activist and organizer, it's true. I saw it firsthand. There's things that happened backdoor that Amy made possible to keep 2 schools open in Rockaway, my school and another school. And every DA that I've ever been to, inside of any union hall or DOE space that Amy has been a part of, she has never brought in her personal politics as a reason to talk about it or to push it or force it loud. There are caucuses that will force their views on people. Unity being one of them, and some of the other caucuses as well, who believe that somehow their personal views are the guiding force for everyone else, when a lot of us have different ideas and views on a whole bunch of other issues. But I can tell you that even when the issues that came up that she spoke about behind closed doors with the resolution writer, not once, when we got to that delegate assembly, not once did I hear Amy speak for or against the issue of Israel or Gaza. She did not bring her personal politics onto the floor. Now, I will tell you that we left that DA, a lot of us left there crying, because how divisive and how charged that room was on all sides, and people were angry, people were sad. I get it, because it was a really, really hard time. Look, I have very strong views on when it comes to the right, Israel's right to exist. I do believe it should, but you know what? That doesn't guide my principles when it comes to union values. I have seen Amy fight for every member with the same intensity. I've seen my chapter leader, who I don't agree with politically. If I looked at her social media, and I have, there are things on there I don't agree with. I might even find them reprehensible, but not once will I ever think that she doesn't go inside that principal's office and she's not fighting for every single member. And I've seen that same intensity from Amy. And so, look, I get it. There are some things that have been said. I will also say that retweets are not necessarily endorsements. Likes on Facebook doesn't necessarily mean you agree with everything that's being said. So let's be very, very careful to put words and intentions in the mouths of any other of our union siblings, Amy included. And so all I'm saying is this: let's be fair. Past performance is the best indicator for future performance. The Amy Arundel that I know does not bring her personal politics onto the floor, and she does not put them in the way of fighting tooth and nail for every single member that is in her care, that she is entrusted to protect.
Can I also just add really quickly? And Daniel, you did, like, I'm wowed because I share so many of your feelings. And I also want to say, throwing these terms out, anti-Semitic and things of that nature, how dare you like throw those terms out at people whom you never worked with? I always thought to myself, when you start resorting to smearing others, it's a clear sign that you don't really have a plan. So you're essentially just smearing people, right, because you have nothing else left to do. And we see that Unity does this, and then we come off as if we're just, you know, it's us fighting with them, and we just keep, like, you know, bashing them, but essentially we're defending ourselves. You know what I mean? Like, we're constantly on the attack, and attacking somebody's character is way easier than offering solutions. Of course you're going to attack someone's character because it's easier. You don't have a plan? Fine, I'm just going to attack what they did 3 years ago. I mean, we've seen it firsthand. 1 minute we're radicals, now we're being affiliated
Trump
or
right wing,
or now we're doing Project 2020 2025. Our 100-day plan is the same as Trump's plan. I'm like, yep. What is it? You know? So I think personally, it's very disheartening for folks that don't know about this. Internally, yes, we know what's going on, but yeah, on the outside, for folks that see one another attacking each other, and we're supposed to be leaders, we're tearing each other down. Like, we're supposed to be lifting members up, fighting for their needs, yet we're resorting to smearing each other. And when I say each other, I mean, again, they don't have a plan, so they have no choice but to keep doing that. You know what I mean? Yeah. So
I just want to piggyback, because there's also just a factual thing that needs to be corrected. You know, when you see Unity people talking about this, they're like, you know, Amy brought her politics into the DA. They've got it completely backwards. There was a leader within the union who's a Unity member, who he was trying to introduce this resolution. He was trying to insert his personal politics into the delegate assembly. And the fact of the matter is, Amy Arundel was the one who said, hang on a second, let's pump the brakes. This is going to divide the delegate assembly. It's going to divide the UFT. And furthermore, like, respectfully, peace in the Middle East does not hinge on a delegate assembly resolution. I'm sorry. Okay, we have a national union, the AFT. They weigh in on national and international issues. The UFT, and this is like, if I had to pick one thing that, like, is ABC's, like, shtick, for lack of a better word, it's, Daniel talked about it, we don't insert our personal politics. We are actually committed to member driven. So whether you are for Israel, against Israel, for the Mets or for the Yankees, whatever, right? At the end of the day, we are going to listen to the members, and we don't bring our stuff with us, all right? Because and also I just want to say that there are members who are genuinely passionate about this issue, and there are sincerely held, deeply held convictions on both sides of this debate.
Right.
But I want to be clear about something. There are also people in Unity that are using this as a wedge issue, and they're using it very cynically. They know that they're doing it, and they're weaponizing and exploiting people's sincere emotions, people that are proudly Zionist and people that are critical of Israel, and they're exploiting these people because they know, like Leah said, they don't have a plan to counteract what we're running for and our message and our platform. And so they do what they have always done, is they divide and conquer. And that's what they're trying to do. They are trying to divide the membership so that they can cling to power for another 65 years. And that's what we're fighting to stop.
You said that so eloquently, Steve, because that hits it on the head. They creating a cudgel within their own membership, and it's never more evident, like Arthur or myself or Dan will chat, or Katie, that my tongue is getting tied. That when we're writing on social media and we're getting attacked by Unity staffers that are being paid by your dues, accusing us of everything under the sun.
And that's the thing. Their attacks are completely inconsistent. I wrote about this on my Substack. We're too far, and Leah just alluded to it. We're too far left. We're too far right. We're too centrist. We're too political. We're not political enough. Like, they will, like, here's the thing. This is what people need to understand about Unity. There is no underlying ideology, all right? You know, Daniel mentioned Moore before, right? I don't agree with a lot of what Moore has to say. There's some stuff I do agree with, but at the end of the day, I will give Moore credit where it's due. They have an ideology. You know what they stand for.
Right.
Unity has no ideology besides clinging to power. So they will say and do whatever is politically expeditious in that moment to further cling to power. You just can't, like, it's like that old joke. How do you know that Unity is lying? Their lips are moving. You just, like, they have so eviscerated the meaning of truth. And they can't be trusted. I mean, I don't know how else to put it.
And I do want to say what I appreciate about this, what Marianne has created, and like I really would love to continue this in some form, is that the only way to come to understanding is to talk to each other.
Yes.
So if we just call each other names, I'm not going to be friends with you because, you know, I don't like this thing that you believe. We're never gonna advance. You can't advance if you're just figuring out ways that you're divided. And so there are hard conversations we have to have. And if we have the right intent in our hearts, we can get through them. We can get through them. And as Daniel's pointing out, if we create a standard for decision making so that people feel comfortable with it, because you're never going to have 100% on anything, but there has to be some sort of standard that gets created where people feel, listen, I said what I thought. Lots of people don't agree with me. I'll keep trying. You know, that has been my whole life, by the way. I have very seldom been anywhere where people agreed with me the most. So I have a lot of practice in this, which is why I know what I did that day. Because I recognize that not everybody agrees with me, and it's okay. It really is. I learn from everybody. You know, the people who have reached out to me who feel strongly about the issue have asked me fair questions. I've answered them. They shared with me, you know, what their concerns are. That's important because that teaches me how to talk and how to think about things. Right. So I believe we believe in debate. We have a lot amongst ourselves. I mean, that's the only way you can.
But that's healthy.
Yeah, I mean,
that's democracy. That's democracy.
Yeah, and this is kind of like the lesson of Marianne. Like she said, you know what? I'm challenging this. I can withstand disagreement, you know, and I think that's a great, important lesson too. Like it's impossible to believe we're all going to agree with each other. And that's that's not even like a vision of the future that I have. Like, oh, someday we'll all agree. That'll never happen.
No.
But we have what my vision for my future, for my kids or the world, is that we can talk to each other and we can create spaces where people say what they think and listen to one another, and we figure out where we can come together in unity. And in that process, we learn from each other, and then hopefully we agree more than we disagree.
We tell people all the time, you're entitled to your own opinion. You're not entitled to your own facts. And Unity has their own facts with everything. One of the last issues you had on your list here was New York Health Act, which you and I have talked about, ad nauseum, because we're attacked with everything. And I don't think Michael Mendel expected me to grab retired Honorable Assemblyman Dick Gottfried, the granddaddy of the New York Health Act, to debunk his BS on Substack, but that's what I did. And he's accused me of being a supporter of it, of which I'm not a vocal supporter of it. It still has problems and needs to be fixed, but I'm one of those people that chooses to be part of a solution than part of the problem. I don't know when or if that bill will ever get passed. I do know that there's still issues that need to be addressed. I'm trying to help them do that. To me, it's not ripe. And you've also been accused of the same very thing. So I want to know, I know you guys got to get to school tomorrow, so we do need to wrap this up eventually. And you need to have closing remarks. So close this one last thing, and then we'll say, each of you could say your goodbyes.
I mean, we do not have a position on the New York Health Act because we don't speak on those things. So people are very used to asking candidates, who are you going to endorse? What are your priorities? Do you support the Health Act? And our answer is the same for all of those. We don't know yet. We have to talk to the
members.
We have to talk to the members. We need a bill. We need to hear from people. I mean, we would create spaces where people who feel strongly in any way about the New York Health Act would share what they think, whether it's the people who sponsored the bill or people who are in organizations who believe in it, and we talk, and perhaps something will come out of that will be better than what this is now. Because I believe that always happens. Whenever you talk to people and you let people give their feedback, you always come out with something better on the other end. Always, always, always. It changes and it's always better. So, that is something that they are saying, particularly to retirees, to scare them. They're telling retirees because they know they are losing retiree support. So now they're trying to scare people. So they're saying these people want the New York Health Act. So those of us in Florida or Arizona or North Carolina, we're not going to have health care. So at least we know Unity won't do that. So it's a lie.
Thank you.
It is a lie about ABC. That's the other thing. There are two different alternatives to Unity, Arise and ABC, and people should look into both, because some of the things that get said about the opposition, which I hate that term. One of the things that's said is the opposition supports the Health Act. I don't want to say one way or the other. I'm just saying there are two full other slates. It's not the opposition. And so if that's a concern of yours, we don't support the New York Health Act. We're not saying we are never going to. We're saying it's not for us to decide in this moment.
Do you know who does?
Probably this is something that would be subject to a referendum.
People
who are in the UFT have to get used to being asked what they think and taking action on it, instead of what they're used to now, which is fake engagement. And then somebody else, we're going to expect people to engage and tell us what they think and step up and be part of the decision-making process in a real way.
Go ahead, Steve.
So I mentioned earlier that every accusation is a confession. Do you know who does support the New York Health Act? Unity. They passed it in the delegate assembly, not once, but twice. They passed it in 2015, and they passed it again. Daniel, when was it? 2017? 2018. You're on mute. But you're on mute. You're on mute. But like this is my point, right? And I want to be clear. Like, again, like I'm like broadly on a personal level. I don't want this to get twisted. I am on a personal level broadly supportive of what the New York Health Act is trying to accomplish.
Right.
But just like you said, Marianne, I have reservations for the same reason that you do. It's like, how does this impact people, particularly if they're living outside of New York State, right? But it's just wild to me that like they don't just lie, but they make a mockery of the truth. They invert the lie, and now it's like you're being told that you're guilty of the thing that they're actually guilty of.
Right.
It's
That's
a
so
joke.
narcissistic.
It's Orwellian.
Here's the thing. Let me add to that, and I know Arthur and I have had this conversation. It was said tonight they don't have an ideology. Therefore, we know in 2007 they passed a reso against the privatization of Medicare, against Medicare Advantage. What do they turn around and do in 2021? They start supporting Medicare Advantage, never asking the members, "Hey, how do you feel about this?" They just decided to do whatever Michael Mogru wanted to do. Now, going back to the New York Health Act, people may not know this, but the official position of the United Federation of Teachers, according to the Delegate Assembly, which is the highest deliberative body, the official position is that we support the New York Health Act. And when I say we,
and we'll lobby for it,
the United Federation of Teachers. And as Steve said, it was passed, it was written, motivated, and passed in unity, rubber stamps on the Executive Board and Delegate Assembly. It was them that passed both resos in support of the New York Health Act. Since then, there has been no talk about it, other than somehow something happened. And I think I have a pretty good idea of what it was. But it had to do a lot with this idea of Medicare Advantage, by the way. Before you know it, when Biden and Kamala said, you know what, we're okay with either having a single payer system or having a privatized Medicare Advantage, then Unity started changing its tune on the New York Health Act. Now, has there ever been a referendum, a poll of members? What do you feel about Medicare Advantage? What do you feel about the New York Health Act? Never, ever, ever. Why? Because decisions are made by three men in a room. And so if you think Unity is not for or against the New York Health Act, it might change tomorrow for all you know, because they do not have a compass. They don't have an ideological compass. They don't have I'll be honest with you. Yes, I will say there's a lack of a moral compass when you can't stand up to something that you know is wrong. And before you know it, because it's in, for personal interests, Medicare Advantage, come on. Since when were unions against traditional Medicare or looking to disrupt it or bankrupt it through privatization? Unions have always been for traditional Medicare. And yet you saw Michael Mogru. He was bragging that this was his brainchild. This was Mogru Care. He created this. So don't believe the hype on the New York Health Act. You don't know what their belief is on the New York Health Act from one moment to the other. We have said very clearly, we said this in December, we don't take a position on it. We believe that all decisions, whether it be our healthcare, must come from the membership. And when the membership is able to have a clear debate on this issue, and we're able to come up with some type of way to make sure that every person is protected, including our retirees that live out of state, then we can talk about whether that's something we want to do, or you know what, that's not something we want to do. But the compass is this. The guiding principle is this. Members decide, not Michael Mogru.
Very good.
Why don't we have some of our quiet people have the last words?
Yes. Well, I want to start backwards this time. So, Raquel, since I ended with you last time, you're first. Hold on one second. Implinity. My question was not answered. Quickly type me your question. I must have missed it. And then I'm just going to start with their goodbyes. And then when we get down to Amy, she can answer that. Okay. Give me what your question was. So Raquel, go ahead.
Okay. Hi. So again, as we're hearing everything, it's all about my purpose for being on this slate is because it's members for members and benefits of students. As your VP of Ed, I am definitely going to be working towards demanding authentic curriculum, ensuring that our teacher voices are heard when it comes to coming up with those curriculums, promoting transparent decision making, and strengthening our member engagement. And from earlier, I heard, there was someone talking about our members or chapter leaders on here that do not have negotiation skills. As Amy said, a lot of the things like during COVID, in my school, which is a very small group, where at the time my principal thought that she could have totally controlled us. We came together. We did not sit there and allow her to take advantage of us. I negotiated with the DOE and we won outright and did give no give backs. She was pissed with me until she was removed. But we won, and because I sat there, I read through and I had conversations and I took no nonsense, and my team of teachers was with me. And again, if we can do that from the small room, from a small school, the same skills we can roll out with. So that's my end it all.
Very good. Thank you.
Quiet ones are lethal.
Jessica.
They sum everything up in like 12 seconds. The rest of us talkers need to.
I know. Take 2.5 hours. Go ahead, Jessica.
So I think there's a couple of goals that I want to accomplish. Number one is just as a union, we do need member buy-in, especially with the actives. It can't just be just the retirees or just the paras. We're all in this together.
Right.
You need active members working in the schools. It's sad, like less than 20, like 6%, 25% voted in the last election. But that just tells you how disconnected our current leadership is with the rest of the members. So we have to bridge that gap. We need to communicate with our members. So we need to listen to what their concerns are, and we need to start addressing them. That's how you get accountability, you get buy-in, and how you start changing, right? So that's one. Number two, in terms of CTE, and this might actually address, I see a question about diversifying the workforce and recruiting members. So this ties in not just with CTE, but education in general. And it might even apply to the other unions as well in the city. You need to make the field attractive. If you want more paras working for the union, then you need to give them more than whatever you're paying them now, which is not a sustainable salary. When you're talking about Section 8 housing, when you're talking about being unable to put food on the table, when you're talking about paying debt for your college degree or your master's or whatever it is you're studying for, we need to start compensating city labor workers what they're trained and what their experience is so that people want to come in. If there's nothing in here, you're not going to get the best or the top talent in the system. It's just simple as that. What can we do as a city to offer things to our future employees, future labor unions, like to be in the system? Because we don't have that right now. We have nothing in terms of the UFT. We're just like right now giving away the very few things that we have left. And if we keep voting the same way, we're not going to have anything left to bargain away with because we bargain away everything. So that's an issue. So we need to make the field more attractive. And if you make the field more attractive, that means you can recruit a more diversified set of employees, right? And you want people to come in with different experience, especially in the CTE area, because you're talking about industry professionals. But again, if you're blocking them from getting them certified into the classroom and not acknowledging their prior experience, prior certification, why would they take the hassle and the pay cut to work for the DOE? It goes hand in hand. So you want to respect talent. You have to compensate them, not just with salary, but dignity and also with the benefits in hand. Right. And going back to previously what was said, we need to start imagining our unions a different way. In particular, the UFT, we're all in silos, how we operate right now. So CTE only works with CTE. VP of high school only works with high schools. Like elementary only works with elementary. And in reality, we all cross each other's lanes because we serve and we network with everyone else. Like high schools depends on middle school depends on elementary school, and special ed and functional, they all affect our daily lives. So you can't just operate in your own silos. We have to start thinking differently because we have many, many different titles from many, many different areas. And so we have to start talking to each other. It can't work the way it does right now. All right, so I'm gonna just end there.
That was great, Jessica. Thank you. Chad.
Thanks. So really, look, what it comes down to is the UFT and its membership is a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
Is really what it is, right? And through the advocacy of Marianne and NYC retirees, we have started to see what it looks like when the giant starts to wake up. And this really, truly is just the beginning of things. And yes, we know that this has been going on for a few years, and this important work, it's a lot of organizing, a lot of work, and a lot of time has gone into this. But this really is the beginning of something. And what I feel it's the beginning of is the labor movement here in New York City is starting to wake up again. And you're still going to have those entrenched interests like Unity, who benefit from people being complacent or apathetic or not knowing where they fit into their union, and Unity not wanting to meet people where they're at and showing them how they do have a place in the union and where they can make a difference. And that's really where ABC is so different from what Unity is that a better contract is committed to meeting all union members where they're at, finding common ground, and working together to figure out what our next steps are going to be. So we will not only move our union forward, our UFT forward, but the entire labor movement within New York City, right? We want to work with all the unions, all the municipal labor unions in New York City, and we want to do this work together as equals, shoulder to shoulder. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you. Go ahead, Arthur.
Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and no one should be in charge of anything for 60 years. It's like we have a king. I sometimes portray Michael Mulgrew as King Mulgrew because he does whatever he wants. The DA passes a resolution supporting New York Health Act, and he stands up and says, we're against it. Doesn't consult anybody. He stands up in front of God and everybody and tells us Medicare Advantage is better than Medicare. Oh, every doctor will take it. And then he finds out, oh, not every doctor will take it. And then it goes away and he finds a new and improved one. And this is the bestest thing in the world. And, as retirees, we've been going through this for a few years, but it's coming to everybody. There is a request for proposals, and they say there are now 2 finalists, Aetna and Emblem, and they're going to foist a plan upon every working New York City employee that will be 10% cheaper than what they pay Emblem. Now, if you believe that they can get something as good or better for 10% less, these people who've negotiated these awful deals year after year, well, I've got a bridge in Brooklyn that I'd be perfectly happy to sell you. We can do better. We will do better. I was going to talk about the sleeping giant, but Chad did, and he spoke very well about it. And I do believe that we are powerful. I do believe that we are the powerful teachers union that gives the New York Post editorial board bad dreams. And I believe we can and will be that, but we need a leader like Amy Arundel with the purple hair over there.
Very good. Leah.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing at his last comment. Arthur, you're so funny. Okay, so last words. First of all, thank you, Marianne, for giving us this platform. I really appreciate it. And I'm learning more and more about how our retirees are very important and our strongest advocates. So thank you for giving us this platform. I just want to say, as Vice President of Elementary Schools, we have to think about how elementary educators are experts in the child development. We are the primary level of schooling, and real learning really does happen when educators rather are being trusted to teach. One of the biggest problems we have right now is mandated curriculums, programs, pacings, and basically our autonomy being ripped away from us. So we don't want to just comply. And I want to make sure that when I am elected as Vice President of Elementary Schools, to fight to protect the right to shape instruction, because that's essentially what we went to school for. We are the experts. We know how to teach. We know how to assess. We know how to communicate with parents. We know how to grade. Let us do those 4 things that we went to school for. And I promise you, our entire shift in education will change. And I just think that we really need to gain back the autonomy, and I will fight tooth and nail for that because I miss that as an educator myself. So let's try to fight for that. And I'm super excited to be working with everybody here because I know that we'll be working as a coalition and not individual. So thank you, Marianne, for having us here.
You're welcome. Katie.
Hi, Marianne. Thank you also for having us here. I just wanted to comment on something that came up before and comes up frequently. We're UFT members, and we each bring our own beliefs, values, personal experiences. We need to remember that the election is not about judging one another. It's about choosing who would be the best leadership to support all members. And I feel like that's often lost in any conversation, whether it be social media or just in general. The best leadership is someone who would be supporting all members' rights. And people love to say that, oh, because of this, we won't support these people or that people. I've never experienced that in my entire time in this group. And I think we just need to stay focused, all of us collectively. I mean, the collective union on the issues that matter, which is members, students, staff, collective power. But yeah, I think that's often lost in the messaging. Even with unity, it's just like, oh, you guys are bad because one person believes in this or one person believes in that. And it's just very divisive. The other thing I want to say is I think it's very important also that if you are voting for ABC, you are voting for basically every municipal labor union in New York City to better them, because we're still going to have the MLC. It'll just be someone who isn't an asshole running it along with Guido. Sorry. I mean, I don't know that those are my parting words. There was no nice way of saying it. So, I mean, Mr. Nespoli is retiring. I mean, maybe
so there's very few bad actors that would sell us off, is what you're saying. That's good.
Now is the time, Marianne. Now is the time.
Sister. So, Infinity had finally written back and said, how will ABC fight in Washington, D.C. Medicare for retirees? So I want to answer that question because active workers actually came with active teachers. Let me clarify, came with us when we took 100 retirees down to Washington, D.C. 2 years ago. So they're already fighting with us. And this fight is not just a city fight. It is a statewide fight and it is a federal fight. And I think I'll let you answer the short question, yes or no. If I'm taking another train down there and you guys are able to come, will you come to Washington with me? There you go. I think your question's been answered. The last question in the chat is from Marie Parrish. She wants to know if Amy, Leah, and Raquel can stand up. They want to see their shirts.
Oh.
And you should consider selling those shirts.
We are. Nat is our shirt person.
I love it.
We also have hoodies and hats.
And that could actually go to a
buttons.
fund like, to change the UFT leadership fund for your futures. So that'd be a great thing to do. So make sure you put that link up. The abettercontract.org down below is how they could reach you. The phone number is also down there. If you didn't get a ballot, you need to call. You should mail that ballot no later than May 20th, obviously, because the mail is working backwards, not forwards. And the deadline for that ballot to get in is what date?
May 28th.
Is that it has to be in the hands of wherever you're mailing.
9 a.m.
At 9
Okay.
a.m. So it really is the 27th. You want to get it in by the 27th.
Very good. So now, Amy, Stephen, Daniel, did you have any parting words or
I've had a lot to say tonight.
okay.
Yeah, I said enough for everybody.
And
I just
Amy-
want to say this is the first time we've kind of done this as
Yes,
a whole group.
I like it.
And I just feel so proud. And I hope that people can really see that, we're serious about what we want to do, and we can do it.
Yeah.
We can do this. We can run this union. We can build power. We can change things for our members and our students, and we can join with other labor unions to really change the way things work in the city. We can do this. And I certainly got that impression listening to all my colleagues. And I hope that the people in the audience got that impression too.
Did you had steady stream all night, and people who were on the fence seem to be on your side by the end of this. I know you said you only wanted an hour, but you really have too much to say for an hour. But you're at 2.5 hours, and I do want to say, make sure you guys get to bed because you are preparing our future.
So to ask, Marianne, if you are not following us on social media, please like us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Please share those links on our social media. I know a lot of you do already. I don't have to tell retirees how to organize because you are badass unionists and you know how to organize. The other thing is this, all of this week, choose 5 people every single day to call or to message or to email and say, have you gotten your ballot? Have you voted yet? And vote for a better contract.
There you go.
We need you guys.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry,
All right.
I cursed.
All right.
Is that Julio?
Julio.
That is Toby.
Toby. So me, Toby, and Julio are the outsiders all barking together. That's beautiful. Okay, woof. There you go. So, and we all bark too. It's so funny. I tell you that story all the time. When I'm editing videos and my dogs hear Mulgrew's voice, they all bark. But you guys have a beautiful evening. Thank you for joining us and coming into our space. We need to pick, you guys should pick one more night to do this, to answer any final questions you got. This was a beautiful thing to do. Thank you for asking to do it anytime. And you guys have a beautiful evening.
Thank you so much, Marianne.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Don't speak what you don't understand. The truth is not in your command. Don't shout about what you think is fake. The decision isn't yours to make. Don't lie about the way things are. Tall tales will take you very far. Don't scoff this life